I'd probably say there was 4 uncaught 50-pounders in there at the right time of year. Do you realise you're driving past some of the best lakes in the country to get here? Yeah. And I kind of went, oh, am I?
The Thinking Tackle Podcast.
Welcome to the Thinking Tackle Podcast. Now, if you haven't already, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now, today I am joined by big carp angler turned publishing mogul, Stuart Brookes. Thank you so much for coming in, Stuart. I know you haven't swapped fishing entirely, but publishing has taken up an awful lot of your time in the last, I don't know, few years?
18 months.
18
really.
months.
I've been working on books for, probably 20 years now.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last 18 months it's become more than just a hobby.
And this is, fair to say, into an industry or a part of our industry that you would struggle to see growing. But talk to me about the process that led you to quitting a high-profile job and becoming a publisher.
Wow. I'd been working at Boots the pharmacy, Boots the chemist, for the best part of 20 years. And in May 2023, I had the option of a redundancy package, so I decided to take the redundancy. And obviously at that point I thought, I'm going to have a couple of months off and go fishing like you do. And after that couple of months, I'm quite liable to get a bit lazy if I'm totally honest. I do like to have the path of least resistance, generally speaking. So I took the redundancy, had 2 months off, and then decided and made myself a promise that I would complete my second book during that period, and that would be a job to do. And I would only think about the next job after I'd sent that Hiding in the Long Grass to print. It went to print on the Sunday, I think it was. So we're going back to about September 23 here. Mm-hmm. Went to print. And then it was a case of what do I want to do? And I'd promised myself that the following day, the Monday, I would sit down and I would decide and think about the future, the rest of the next few years. But of course, on that Sunday evening, once it had gone to print, and right, Stuart, you must remember, don't sit on your ass. Tomorrow, right, start of what you're going to do for the rest. And on that Sunday evening, I just started pulling at threads in my mind. That's a good idea. Oh, I could do that. What about that? And I was still awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, and my mind just wouldn't sit still. So I woke up the next morning on the Monday and with the decision pretty much already made that the phrase I use with myself is I'm all in on this.
Yeah. Which was publishing? Which
is DaveDog Publications.
And who's Dave?
Dave is my little border terrorist, or border terrier. He's 5.5, so he absolutely is old enough to know better now. But he's the brains behind the operation.
Mm. And sometimes I guess having all the choice in the world is incredibly difficult today. Is that why you have found yourself so overstimulated?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm an educated. I've had a good career, good job, but my mental health was suffering.
Yeah.
And it was suffering for probably the last 5 years. I was working in that office environment, and after 2018, I had a quite a horrible episode of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And I've made the decision, or on that Monday after signing off Hiding in the Long Grass, I made the decision, I asked myself, do I want to go back and sit in another office doing a similar sort of thing to what I've been doing over the last 20 years? And the answer in my head was no, thank you very much. So, right, okay, what do we do? How do I do it? How do I become that person who loves his job and the old saying about a man who enjoys his job never does a day's work in his life. Well, that's kind of the sort of ethos that I'm trying to achieve. You're absolutely right. It's a crap market at the moment. Has been for a little while. The sort of book premium time, I think, was probably about 15 years ago, and there were many people that you could get books published with and from, but they seem to be dwindling quite quickly now. And I want to create a business that helps people not only create my own writing, and my own books, but I want to help people to achieve their dreams and their ambitions within the print world, which is quite exciting. And yeah, it's now been 18 months, and my mental health is brilliant. I'm not fishing as much as I'd like to be at the moment, but who is? So yeah, no, once I decided to go down the route, it was all in.
And I think that is such a common theme now. It feels like the last few years people are prioritising their health, their mental health, their time over, because you had your job was pressurised, but you were very successful, and yet you were willing to just shelve that.
Yeah, I've been doing a similar sort of job for probably 7 or 8 years, and I was probably overdue a change, a new challenge, and a new direction.
Tell us about it, because I find it a fascinating job that I don't think many people would even know exists.
Okay. I've obviously got to be a little bit careful on
just
things
in
I say.
sort of general terms.
But you can imagine a company like Procter & Gamble, who sell to Boots Head and Shoulders. When that P&G account manager comes in to see the Boots account manager and says, right, the price of Head and Shoulders is going up by 50p a unit. Obviously, the buyer then comes to me, and what we do is we value it up. So volume times increase. Some of these cost price increases were, because of the volumes, they were 10, 12 million pounds. So big decisions. And my role really was to help the buyer through that process, getting to the best outcome we did. And I was signing off millions of pounds worth of cost price increases.
Did you feel the pressure? Are you personally under pressure there?
My role was quite
sort of one step removed.
Yes, it was. I wasn't at the coalface.
Yeah.
I don't think it was probably particularly stressful, but when combined with the mental health issues I was having at the time, it made it just not fun.
Yeah.
And got me thinking and looking for a change.
And in terms of mental health, do you think it's easier to talk about it now than ever, or is it something in you that made you sort of able to do that?
Well, I can't really put a pin on a date when I first started with anxiety, but in 2018, I sat at my desk, and actually no, we had a little group meeting with a guest speaker within head office at Boots, and it was that week was Mental Health Awareness Week. So we had up on the stage, we had somebody come in from an appropriate business and talk to us about mental health, and it was really look after yourselves and look after your people that work for you, sort of thing. And there were some handouts, and so I grabbed a handout and went back to my desk and kind of sat and ate a sandwich while I was looking through this a few pages, and within the pages of information that I'd got from that event, one of them was a list, of things that might show symptoms. That would be a great word to use. It showed a list of symptoms, and I literally went down that list and went tick 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 shit. Was pretty much, whilst I was eating that sandwich, the way the brain whirled. As luck would have it, I had a doctor's appointment that afternoon. Totally irrelevant. Totally different reasons. But I decided, after reading that list of symptoms, that I needed to speak to somebody. And perhaps this is what I thought I was going mad, quite frankly. Thought I was going mad. So I went to the doctors that afternoon. We sorted out the other thing that I went in for, and I kind of just, for the first time ever, I said the words, "Can you do anything to help me with anxiety?" And with that, the waterworks opened up. Probably 2.5 days of constant crying. I've spent, at the time, I'd probably spent 40 years hiding these things and battling, like us blokes, do.
Macho carp anglers.
Absolutely. But, we do all have mental health, and whether it's good or bad or indifferent. But so it was the mental health side of things with a doctor. She gave me some sertraline, which was I think it's largely used as an antidepressant. Okay. But I think a lot of the medicines are similar for anxiety and depression. And just to be clear, I've never been depressed. I don't suffer with depression. It's anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Did you see presumably medication's one thing. Were you looking to, and this is where the life change comes.
It is.
The planning comes.
Thank you for bringing me back on.
No, that's fine. That's what I'm here for.
Yes, absolutely. So that doctor prescribed me some meds, gave me some counselling details, and basically from that moment when I realised I'd got a problem, or I think I knew for a long time I'd had the problem, but didn't know what it was, and all of a sudden I think I found out what it is. So right, let's face into it and see if we can sort it out. So I did therapy, I did meditation, I did a cognitive behavioural therapy, did all sorts of things to try and manage the anxiety, which in the end worked well, and I probably can't put my finger on what element was the thing, but it's really strange. I went from a closed off, I don't want to talk to anyone about my mental health, to being able to sit here on a podcast and talk about. If you'd have said I was doing this 7 years ago, I'd have laughed at you.
Yeah.
But when I had some time off after that trip to the doctors, probably had a month off, I went back into work, and there must have been probably 30 people that asked how I was. There's probably a lot more than that, but there was about 30 people who said, "How are you? What you okay?" And when I explained of suffering with anxiety, that person, I think 28 of those 30 people, their first words were either my dad, my mum, my sister, my brother, my husband suffer with and the other one was, what, you suffer with anxiety, get away, sort of thing. Because I'm generally quite a smiley person, and I've practiced and got quite good at hiding what's going on underneath. And I found when I had those first few conversations with people at work, when I went back to work, it was liberating to feel that I'm not alone, I'm not going mad, and we all have this, and we all struggle with this. And I think the world has changed these days, and I think blokes talking about their mental health is now accepted. It's obviously encouraged. But I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a much more acceptance within the communities, within the population.
Really.
That you need to face into this, and I'm forever glad that I did.
And do you think that now that you're, because some people might imagine that being self-employed and actually your income depending on decisions you make would be more pressure, but actually you find it better? I think so. So one of the things that that causes me anxiety is busy places. Right. I haven't been to pubs for years. The office where I worked was busy with people on the phone, and it's that I struggle with. And it makes it sort of triggers me. Are you able to be fulfill more of your potential then by being quiet and on your own and making?
I think I think I'm very comfortable on my own. Probably as carp anglers, a lot of us would say we are, but I also live on my own. I'm not married, no kids, just me and the dog, which is great.
It's something you're very comfortable with. Life has changed dramatically.
It has, and
you have actually just. I think we can break a bit of an exclusive. You've just signed off on the latest book, which I do want to talk about. Icon's Best of British.
Correct.
Is that right?
The Best of British. Yes.
The Best of British. And this is a collection of images that you put together.
It is.
I'm really fascinated by this idea that carp fishing and big carp fishing has changed so much. Let's just to clarify, you still live in the Midlands.
Correct.
And you've travelled to what many would consider to be like the crucible of big carp fishing, the Colne Valley for many years, or you did for 20 years, I think.
Yeah.
Fishing for some old carp. things have changed dramatically, Stu, haven't they?
They
In terms of what. So why now? Why a book of Big Carp now?
I think, I mean, I could probably sum it or sum it up well with one word, and that's redundancy. That was the catalyst that allowed me to have that break from what I was doing.
But my point is, you could have chosen to do any book, but you've chosen to do this book.
It's a specific book. The idea, funnily enough, the idea for this wasn't mine. It's such a simple idea.
Mm-hmm.
I for days I was slapping myself around the head saying, why didn't you think of that? But it was a conversation I had with Jason Hayward on the way down to a Pete Springate talk in Kent at the beginning of April.
Yeah.
And we got sort of 2.5 hours in the car, and like you do, we were chatting away sort of thing. And he mentioned, why don't you do a coffee table book? Was his kind of...
Yeah.
So, that's what... Why haven't I thought of that? So it was actually Jason that came up with the concept, and I'm eternally grateful that I picked him up for that ride and that conversation. So following that conversation, I started to put a bit of a plan together about, okay, how am I going to do it? I can't do it all on my own. Who do I? I've got quite a good list of contacts and friends. So basically, I've been contacting people, and everybody has said, "What a bloody brilliant idea!" And I can't wait for this to come out, which is great. And what I have noticed on the pre-sales is I'm hitting a new audience. With
Really?
this. Yeah, I can see that a lot of people, this is their first purchase from DaveDog.
Yeah.
Whereas I have a load of customers that have bought all of the titles off me, obviously. So I'm hoping that we're referring to it as a pictorial encyclopedia. We're hoping that that's going to bring in a whole new range of people who might think that I like books. I didn't realise I did, and I actually quite like reading it and looking at it. So the exciting thing for me is bringing new people in, and that's what I want to try and keep doing over the next years.
How on earth did you set a bar for inclusion, or did you say yes to everybody? How did it work? Because these are the best, in inverted commas, the best.
Yeah.
So how does that work in your mind?
I'll answer that kind of a bit about face, but I showed a mate of mine the whole book about 4 or 5 days ago, and he was drooling and, wow, look at that.
Which is the kind of response you wanted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, once he'd finished, I asked him to tell me what his top 5 were.
Mm-hmm.
And not one of his top 5 was in my top 5. And at that point, I thought, I quite like that. That's because it's got to be something for everyone.
Yeah.
And it appears that, we've got, like women, I suppose, we've all got different tastes. So the feedback from the guys, a couple of guys that have seen it, plus asking about which is their favourite, I'm really pleased with.
Give us an insight then, Stu. Have your water, but what was your top 5? Can you remember? I'll put you on the spot now, but if you can remember 3 or 4 of them, then...
So I'd certainly go with The Client.
Yeah.
Lionel's from Save.
Yeah.
So
you've got a couple of, like, I'd say The Client was amongst the end of that sort of golden era that we had of Big Carp.
It was, yeah.
And before the explosion, if you like.
Yes, yeah.
The Lionel's obviously, it runs right the way through the last, 40 years or 50 years?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So, I mean, the point, I suppose, is there's something for everyone.
But it's a good talking point, though, right?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I think everyone's going to have their favourites. There was one photo that came from Wingham, from the Lake Wingham. It's called the Leanie, I think it's called, for presumably obvious reasons. What about her? And my favourite comment, funnily enough, is it's one of the smaller ones. It's only about £32, but it's just the shape of it and the dark colours. And
I mean, did you have to keep an open mind? Because obviously, like you say, everyone has different taste. Does that mean, though, that you had to indulge your taste alone, or did you just try and keep an open mind when they dropped into your inbox?
I mean, ultimately, it's my call and my decision. I'd like to think I know a good-looking carp when I see one. But of course, we all like a bit of variety.
Yeah.
So I was keen to.
Did you say no to any?
I did say no to a couple, yes. And I've got a file called Volume 2 that is now starting to bulge.
Mm-hmm.
So there was quite a lot of we obviously could only fit so much into Icons, the Best of British. But I've now got a volume 2 folder that's starting to fill up nicely. So, I mean, the bar was very high.
Which it should be, right? Best of British.
Absolutely. And I think everyone will have something in there that they go, God, look at that.
Do you know the one thing I would say? So there's two things. One question I want to ask, which you touched on there, is size a bar to entry with the best?
No.
Absolutely
No,
not.
No,
right,
it's
okay.
not.
Didn't have to be a 50-pounder, for instance.
No, it didn't. It helps.
Yeah.
I was more keen to get good shots. The weight. I almost didn't put the weight. So each photo comes with a little, I've called it a fact file, but it shows the name of the fish, the location, the date, the weight, and the captor. So only a small bit of information. I thought about not putting in the weight, just to take that out of it completely. But hey, we're all carp anglers. We like the big ones, don't we?
Yes. And did you must have been sorely tempted when the odd one popped through to be like, I won't be putting that one in. But where was this from, by the way? You know.
Yes, there were a few of that. And to be honest, I've contacted loads of people, had loads of people contact me. I've gained and gathered hundreds of photographs. But the one thing that I noticed, the big surprise for me, is going back 15, 20 years, we always used to talk about the size of the photos and 6 megapixel cameras and megabytes this and pretty much 80% of the photos that I received were such tiny files that they can't be printed. And what became transparent was that the size of the file is no longer really relevant, because
on your phone.
You could put a 20 megabyte picture on Facebook, and it will shrink it down to 200, 300 kilobytes. And what's become obvious is that we've all changed the way we store our photos and look at our photos, and it's all through social media.
Carp anglers were bad to start with. I know loads of big carp anglers very serious about what they do, whose entire collection is on an SD card, still in the camera.
Yes.
Never mind the phone era, where probably nothing ever makes it to an album anymore. But which is kind of ironic that you've done just that.
Yeah. It's, as I say, it's been a tougher one to do than I expected it.
Yeah.
But through working it through, we've now got a it's sign off. I think it's 400. I think it's 392 pages. I think I counted up 240 different fish, 3 British records, and there's probably something like 700 photos.
And what do you hope that people will gain from flicking through the book?
I'd like to think a love of books. Again, in my opinion, the world has changed, and everyone now is going down the podcasts or listening or YouTube and videos. This is old school, and one thing that's obvious is that it's an old school thing, the books, largely for old school anglers who, unfortunately, we are all getting older, and that market is therefore getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
But what I don't understand, though, is I was part of that market, as we discussed on the phone, and many people I know were. I've got hopefully a long time book buying in front of me. The market that you touched on 15, probably 20 years ago now, we're all still alive, I think, but people are not buying books anymore. I don't understand why.
The world has changed. I think instant gratification. People are now, they spend so much time on their phones, tablets, and computers. It's just a more integral part of our life now, I think. And probably for a reason of a bit of a busman's holiday, but my enjoyment of reading isn't there anymore, or I don't have the passion to sit down and read anymore because it's my work.
Do you proof the books yourself?
I do.
So you get the worst job. I mean, like, you get the worst part. You have to read with your kind of like your proofreader hat on, as opposed to enjoying
absolutely
it.
Yes, absolutely. So it's work, and it's at the end of the first and second run throughs that I do, you could say to me, is it a good book, and I would probably not know. So which is a bit strange,
because I definitely relate, because I'm having made a lot of films in the last 15 years, I don't get to enjoy any of them because I've lived with them for days and weeks. I'm sick of them.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm not doing quite as much of that. When a new film drops on my lap, I can probably enjoy that a bit more. Well, Stu, talk to me about your literary influences. I know you were very, you were good mates with Mickey Gray. You had a lot to do with his first book. I think, did you proof his first book for him?
Yeah.
What are the sort of books that you liked before you lost your?
I say I've lost it. I still love it.
Yeah.
I just don't get the time to.
No, it's become, like you say, it's become oversaturated for you because it's your job now. But
yes.
what would be your top?
I mean,
bit of reading
for me, the Bible is Terry Hearn's In Pursuit.
Okay.
I've never been one for reading too much going backwards in time. So Rob's books of Basil's Bush, etc. That classics. Those his 3 books and Terry's 1 would probably be right there.
So that's the start of things for you, and you've worked forwards. But it doesn't give you a lot of time when the book market was big.
No. I missed the boat as far as that one was concerned. But I think when I first got into it, when it was Mickey Gray was doing a guest chapter in Terry's second book, and I got an email from Mick. I think he said something along the lines of, "You are the only educated friend I have. Would you mind having a read?" And of course, it was like, "Yeah, of course, lovely." So came on board. I'm sure Mickey won't mind me saying, but there wasn't a comma, a full stop, or a capital letter. There was a lot of work. So just getting it up to scratch. The story was all there. The nuts and bolts was absolutely there. But we spent. It's his 2000. Sorry, for Mickey's guest chapter, I had a proof. Did some changes, sent it back to him with something like, "That's bloody wicked, Mick. You've got to start penning your own," sort of thing. And I'm sure I wasn't the first and only people to say that to Mick, but so we did that, and I think that Terry's book was published in 2006, and at that point that was me and books. I'd done one. So just stepping back slightly, going back to about 2000, 2002, that kind of time, turn of the century, I was reading. There just weren't many books out, and I was finishing Terry Hearn's In Pursuit and then turning it over and starting it again. I must have read that 150 times.
It is right up there, that book.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I remember getting frustrated at that time, going, "Well, why isn't anyone else writing books? This is bloody marvellous. Come on, guys." And I kind of sat and thought, "Oh, well, maybe I could do one." So this is early 2000s. But the only problem was I hadn't really caught anything that was of any interest to anyone at that stage. So the idea was shelved. Helped Mickey with the guest chapter. Then shortly after that, we were working on Mickey's writing for his first book. And that was purely a hobby, a labour of love, working with a mate. It was bloody hard work, quite frankly. But for us both. But we got there,
still friends.
Still friends. His writing then came through, so we did his first book in. Again, that was probably 2006, 2007.
Came out in 2007, did it? Yeah,
I think it was. Yeah. So I helped Mick with that one there, and then in 2006. I had a wonderful spring fishing in the Colne Valley Pit 4, and I caught over the spring. I'd got a stack of photos of very large fish and thought, "Cool, they're nice, aren't they?" And at the end of it, I thought, end of that spring, I thought, I don't want to get to 80-year-old and lose my mind and not remember what all these pictures are. Why don't I just do a little,
diary,
couple of pages on sort of what happened in the spring of 2006 to tie the photos together. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Really good fun. Wrote that 3-month period, and once that was finished and I'd read it and proofed it and whatever, I then went back and wrote about the previous year and the previous year and the previous year.
Can I ask, what kind of vibe were you trying to? What kind of style would you say you've got, and what kind of vibe are you trying to invoke? Like, is it the kind of, just for people who haven't read, Beyond the Green Gate was a bit of a cult classic when it come on to the idea of that publishing that first book, but did you have a style in mind? Were you going to be like Rob Mayling, warts and all, a bit more, perhaps Terry a little softer and a bit more?
To be honest, I try and write like I talk. Most of my books have got one or two swear words in there. Nothing too bad, but I try and.
We all swear a lot.
Well,
don't we?
I'm quite a potty mouth, so stopping that getting onto pages,
But Mickey had kind of had broken that. Here was a guy that not everybody knew. His stories were funny, like they were showing that side of carp fishing, the kind of the drinking, the friendships, the kind of like rolling around in the nettles, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So would you say it's in similar vein to that?
Yes, I would think so. I would probably, because I've worked on them, I would think Mickey's books and my books are similar kind of tales and
yeah.
I'm not a technical writer. I'm not I've got no interest in rigs really. I've got no interest in bait really. So for me it's all about location, and then just putting the tried and trusted in front of them.
We got some Pitfall fish. Did you send some over that we were allowed to show?
Yeah, I think I sent a couple over.
What can you work on that in the background, Tobes, because they're on a link? But it'd be nice to sort of pop a couple up so people know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's use this moment before we talk about Beyond the Green Gate to focus on what led you to go beyond the Green Gate, which is a part of the Colne Valley. Bear in mind you're Nottinghamshire born and bred. So how does that even happen?
So not at the time.
Right.
I did 3 years at Bournemouth University. The first half of the 90s.
Great place to study, by the way.
It was brilliant.
The beach every day, whatever.
Mate, it was brilliant. All those, the beach and all the old ladies. It was. They say time of your life, and I tell you what, it was. But I did 3 years at Bournemouth, then ended up getting a job in London, doing the promotions for a pub company, so looking after about 45 pubs across the country.
Sampling the wares?
Once or twice, yeah. Opening dues and parties and marketing and that sort of stuff. And then I did that for 18 months, I think. And then I had a slight change of tack and went to another pub company called Smith & Jones, and I became a pub manager, a landlord, so to speak. So I went from uni to marketing pubs to then running pubs. Brilliant stories, brilliant times from that era. But then turn of the century, 2000, I then saw a job advert at Boots. It was actually at Moss Chemists, I think they were called then, and then Moss Chemists changed branding and then got bought by, or then they bought Boots, and so it all changed. But I feel like I'm just skipping around a little bit, but yeah, the desire to write, and you asked where that came from, was from that 2006 period, and I've just kept it up ever since.
So you were living in the southeast.
I was,
hence you knew about the Colne Valley because it's famous, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I probably moved to west of London, Shepherd's Bush, West Drayton, that kind of thing,
right in the heart of
absolutely.
All of this.
And I didn't know anyone down in London at the time, and at the time I was fishing at Hardwick Park in Oxfordshire.
Yes.
And I was travelling. I was living at the time.
It might be. I think we've got a couple of photos of Hardwick in the early year stuff. Did we get that? I don't know if we did.
Actually, those tench ones are from Hardwick Park.
Because you the last of the Leanie swimming round your tench float there. Look.
Absolutely. Look at that.
Cheeky little
bastard.
Yeah.
They might even be the first tench I caught. You can see I combed my hair for that day, can't you? There were 3, but unfortunately one of the little slippery little buggers ended up going over as I was trying to pick it up. But I think they were my first tench, if I remember right.
So Hardwick Park.
So I was travelling from west of London, round the M25, up the M40 for an hour and 20 minutes and fishing at Witney in Oxfordshire. And Hardwick Parks is a caravan park. Lucky that I'd grown up there, in as much as my godfather had a caravan there, so we spent a lot of time and I learnt to fish there, etc. But a friend of mine, one of the caravan owners, said, "Do you realise you're driving past some of the best lakes in the country to get here?" Yeah. And I kind of went, "Oh, am I?" Not knowing and with that, the next weekend he took me to Pit 3 and we had a walk around, and that was it. That was the I joined the lake and never looked back, sort of thing.
Really?
So it was a chance conversation with a friend of mine who knew the area well enough to then sort of take me down and show me a few places.
So talk to us about that that you called your first book Beyond the Green Gate.
Yes.
Talk to us about the pits that lie beyond the Green Gate, what the appeal was.
So, the appeal was from John when we walked around it. I think it was a late November, and he told me all the swims and what he'd caught and what had been caught and what's in here. And but I think before the 24 hours was up, I think I'd bought a ticket from the club. And so Pit 3 was really my first love. I'd been carp fishing. I caught my first carp in 1987, I think. So I've been carp fishing for 15 years at this stage, and but I'd only been fishing smaller waters that didn't have 20 pounders in, so I wasn't fishing lakes with big fish, so I didn't catch any. But very fortunate, in as much as my dad is one of the best anglers I know, could turn his hand to pretty much anything, and therefore
it's a great ask, by the way,
there, isn't it?
So that dam hat was given to me by Ian Heaps.
Amazing.
Again, going
big,
back,
yeah,
absolutely big match.
I'm surprised you haven't had him on the Guru one, Tobes, Ian Heaps. He's a big name in that world.
I'm not
he?
sure whether he's still alive. To be honest.
Hopefully he is.
Oh, I would hope so. Apologies.
I hope you're out there, Ian.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that is my first ever carp.
It's a bit of a belter.
£17 3 ounces.
Yeah.
My first ever carp. I look at that photo now and just see the zips on my knee pockets.
And it's sliding down. Yeah.
But yeah, nice soft bit of grass. That was all that was needed. And that was my first carp, and really set the bug rolling, and crikey, good sized carp.
But Pit 3 was where you stepped up.
It was. So Pit 3.
That's where you met Mickey, presumably.
It is, yes.
But it feels like if you read Mickey's book, you're in it a fair bit, hauling. So it's like you've gone pretty quickly. You didn't have any problems adapting to a circuit water, let's say.
No, it was relatively quiet. Yeah. I fished it hard that December, January, and February. I ended up catching, a handful of fish in the February, and it rolled from there.
Why did you find it easy? Like, why? Is it something you've learned from your dad? Like, how are you just seamlessly knocking out big uns from the Colne Valley all of a sudden?
I wish it was that easy, and I wish I could tell you answer that question. But I was working hard at it, walking the lakes every evening. At this point I was probably 15 minutes from the lake.
Yeah.
So staying on top of the lake, the carp, where they were, who was fishing, who was catching, was all quite easy. It's a lot. They're all gravel pits down there, but simply fishing for good drops, and sticking bait out or catapult ideally. And there were some very tough times. I went months without having a bite, but I always caught a few along the way, which was quite nice.
Because I feel like Mickey bigs you up a bit in his book. Like, I feel like he suggests you're red hot at that period.
Do you know what?
At times.
I probably was. Yeah. Or the point is, I'm not now. But at that time that you're talking about Mickey, those, let's say, 3 years up until when I started and met Mick through to the first book, that was my golden period, as it were, down there. I was young, keen, and catching well. But yeah, that's not.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look, Tubbs. I can't remember what you've sent exactly, Stu. But the Pit 3. So there you go.
That's yeah.
Pop
So
that one up.
That one there is. Is
that the big one?
Yes, it's referred to as the big one.
Yeah.
£39 one there, I think. Far and away my personal best at the time.
Yeah.
About 2004, I think that probably is.
It's a big lake, right?
It's 30 acres, 35 acres, so certainly big enough for them to sort of get lost. Quite long and thin. A good head of carp, but not easy.
Yeah.
If you can catch 10 a year out of there, you were doing quite well at the time with the stock that it was there.
And what's the history of these ones? Do you know? So
they were dug for all of the lakes in that area were dug for the M25 and Heathrow, particularly Heathrow, I think, back in the 50s largely. And then clubs took them over and stocked them, and of course, you've got rivers, and back in those days as well, there was a fair bit of fish moving going on. So Yeah, I'm not sure of the stocking history of it going back, but I know some of the fish in there were very old and had been in there for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of like the carp to catch in that little group of lakes, isn't it?
Yes. It's. I think it's still alive. Last I heard, the big one's still alive. I hope so.
Did it make the book? Has it made the
yes.
the next book? I mean, has it made the coffee table book?
No, it hasn't. No,
Never did make the grade.
That was quite difficult. Kind of how do I put some photos of me in or not? The idea was it was other people, but no, for that reason, it isn't in there. But you never know. Volume 2 might not. Might be far behind.
And you've got that in that little cluster. You've got Pit 3. You've got Pit 4 that you went on to fish with Mickey, didn't you?
Yes.
Smaller lake, with some. I think maybe you were there at the right time for the size.
I think, to be honest, I think I've been lucky with all of the lakes that I've fished in the last 25 years that I have purely by luck hit them at the right time. Which, very thankful.
Talk to me about about what Pit 4 was like. The realities of fishing that place.
So, I'd done probably 3 years on Pit 3. Caught a number of good ones, and it was time to start thinking about elsewhere.
Luckily, there's one right there.
So the other side of the causeway seemed an obvious place to start looking. And so I was, and again, because the bailiff the both, and if you got on okay, if you won't, then that was the way to get into Pit 4. Was just by doing your apprenticeship on Pit 3. I'm not sure if it's still like that, but so about 2004, I think it was, I had a ticket for Pit 4. I think I did about a dozen nights on that year, but every single night I was looking across the causeway thinking, where are they on Pit 4? Where are they on Pit 3? So it didn't really sort of have my attention until the spring of 2006, and that's when I'd caught the last that I wanted out of Pit 3, and could now focus on Pit 4. I think I did 3 years on Pit 4, something like that. But that 2006 was the first spring. So it was the first spring that Pit 4 had ever been opened.
Always a good time to be on.
Which, yeah, absolutely. Consensus was, some people thought it would fish its nuts off. Other people thought it would just be like June the 16th. And as soon as leads and lines start landing, then, the same would happen. But a few friends knew and had first springs on other lakes and gone, this could be, pretty spectacular. And it was. It was bloody tough fishing. The season started on the 15th of March. And I think by the 20th of April, I'd not had a bite, not come close, was probably done about 12 or 15 nights at that stage, was really struggling, as was everybody else. But I changed my tactics and went basically fish singles, which these days is tried and trusted. But back then it was more casting at showing fish and casting at bubblers, as lighter lead as possible. Moving 3 or 4 times a day. I was working at it. I was super keen working at it. And over that first spring, I think I probably caught the biggest 5 fish in the lake. I think all within about an 18-day period, which is about 9 days worth of fishing. So it was phenomenal stuff. And loved every minute of it.
Talk to me about the single fishing. I know you said you're not a technical writer. I'm not going to probe on that particularly, but I'm interested in how were you simply waiting for them to show you and then just chucking onto them?
Yeah, I mean, it started with I was fishing with bait, and probably on March the 13th, I'd have probably said, right, I'm going to fill it in. They're going to be hungry. They're going to be waking up. Kind of. Maybe it's time to, a good option to sit on a pile of bait like. But I've never been a big bait user, but I was trying different spots, different amount of bait on each spot, different rigs. I was chopping and changing, trying to get something that worked. And all it appeared was that the fish was shying off beds of bait. That's how it felt. So it was towards the end of April, I think it was, when I decided I had a move, and I didn't actually put the rods out for the night. I was the only one on the lake, and I wanted the fish to show me where they were that morning. and then I would move and cast accordingly. Got up at first light and started to see a couple showing some bubbles, and then it was just a case of 3 ounce lead, it was 70 yards, and I had my first bite of that spring, and up until that point I'd felt a million miles away from a bite. So then it was a case of sticking with that, and yes, showing fish and bubblers, feeling for a donk. I was using a bait at the time. I can't get it anymore. It was best hook bait I've ever used, I think, and it was a Dynamite Baits, Scopex and blue blackberry, I think. And
Pop up, yeah.
yes, and there was quite a few of us fishing with them, and they caught an awful lot of fish, because of course once I'd sort of, not saying I was,
Colour were they? Sort of reddish?
Bright orange.
Orange. Yeah.
But of course, when someone starts catching on a lake, we all kind of soon understand why or how or what they're doing. So singles became quite a popular thing. But yeah, it was one hell of a spring. And
Did we get any photos from that spring?
so there's one on there, Toby, called the Leather, I think.
Oh, that's such a cool fish. Is it still alive? Is this one still alive?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think quite a few of them have,
Yes, mate.
have died. But
Mega.
I'd seen that one a couple of years previous with someone cradling it. It was only about 34 pound at that time. But I made a mental note that, I'd like to get that one in the album.
How big was it there, Stu?
42 pounds, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so you're catching quality fish in the Colne Valley.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty mega. You must be pinching yourself, really.
It was it was a proper purple patch.
How are you fitting it in around work?
Luckily, I worked close to home, and the fishing.
Genuine
was close.
overnighters then?
I was a
Weekends.
weekend angler, and at that time I was doing 1 or 2 overnighters in the week. I've never been a particularly keen on overnighters. I struggle with sleeping, and I'm just knackered the next day.
Yeah.
And when you're sitting all day in front of a screen, with the ability to close your eyes, it's quite a dangerous game you start playing. So I kind of I've not done I think they call it a quick overnight.
Quick overnight now, yeah, that's what it's now.
I haven't done a night overnight, whether it was quick or not, for probably 20 years.
Wow.
So
because you get a chance to, on the Saturday morning, you can sort of or Saturday afternoon, you can have a bit of a kip with the radio on, sort of thing, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Classic session angling sort of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mega fish.
But that's I mean, there was all sorts in there, all sorts in all the lakes.
Wasn't they strange stock that pit forward? Goldeneye, the big one, was
that was a bit of a
ghosty.
Yeah, it looked a little bit of ghosty about it, a little bit of koi.
That must have been a very visible fish. That one.
It was, yes. And there were a couple of others that had got white patches on their tails that were always quite easy to.
Like you say, Colne Valley's a melting pot of fish, almost like a parky sort of vibe to it.
Absolutely. I mean, back in the 80s there was a flood, and a lot of fish got out into the River Fraser or the canal, and what would have happened if they'd ever remained in there, I don't know. But what I thought that is,
because obviously looking back at the older Pit 4 photos, you had those fish that Mickey calls the bacon skins.
Yeah.
Rough chocolate brown.
That's it. Yeah.
Ancient carp.
Old as the hills.
Were they largely gone when you were fishing there?
No, there was still some in there. There was still some in Pit 3. There was probably 3 or 4 or 5. I think, again, there's a couple had gone walkies over the causeway.
Yeah.
I can only assume.
Yeah.
There's a number of lakes behind that Green Gate, and they all hold very special fish, or certainly did at the time I was fishing.
I mean, obviously, would you say like the golf course Italian was like sort of king amongst those, really? Hadn't been caught a lot when you fished there, had it?
No. So I went. I had a couple of looks around the golf course lake, which is just behind Pit 3, and I thought, "Cool, this is nice. Nobody fishing it. Different club ticket," and soon found some fish. And what I knew before I started on there was I knew of one guy who'd had a little go, and I think he caught about a dozen different carp, and he thought there was about 20 in there, and there was mostly low 20s with a couple of high 20s that might go 30 pounds if you catch them at the right time. That was kind of what I knew, which wasn't an awful lot on that first walk. But on that first walk I found the Italian, and I'd never seen him or it before. And
Did you know what you were looking at?
well, I was kind of rubbing my eye, and it was right in close, and I got a really good view of it. Fucking massive, great big arse waddle, kind of. And it came in and it fed a bit down by my feet, and then off it went, and it really was just waddling. But that didn't tie in with what I knew about the lake, and some low 20s and maybe 2 that might go 30. I was looking at a bloody big fish there. So obviously tried to keep it a little bit quiet. But on the first morning of the season, so at that time there was a close season on there, I think. So I cast out on the 16th of June. I think that my first fish that year was the Italian.
Amazing.
And ironically,
Yeah, there he is.
yeah, there she is.
Oh, she, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I playing it, hooked it from down the left, playing it, but the sun was up, and that was the second capture there. But the sun was up, and where the fish surfaced, and I was pulling it across the net, the sun was right in my face, and I drawing it over the net. I couldn't see what it was. All I could see was this great big current bun that was bouncing off everywhere, and put it in the net and looked down and thought, bloody hell. It had spawned out, and it was 37 pounds. So I was thinking, well, that was definitely 40 pound and or over. And funnily enough, she did love a boilie, and I caught the second season I did on there. Again, she was the first fish I caught, and that was there at 43, I think, from the top of my head. So I'd managed to nobble her before she'd spawned that year.
Just for people who perhaps aren't aware of the kind of the lineage of these kind of carp, you literally can't find those anymore.
No,
I don't think.
No, I don't think you can. I was told that the golf course lake had received some fish from Save, which is just across the canal. Don't know how true that was, but I used to look at that photo and think, it does look like an old Save fish. That could be Mario or one of the Italians from Save. But in the last couple of years, I have seen another photograph of this fish.
Yes.
From the canal behind pit 2 and 3.
Which obviously doesn't prove or disprove the Save theory, does it?
No, they could still well be. But I think it was Danny Smith that caught it, and it was 20 pounds or thereabouts. And somewhere along the line, it's either been moved or moved through floods, and now sitting there. So I didn't know whether they were old Save. Some of them were old Save carp, but all of them are absolutely beautiful. And it was probably my second favourite time I was fishing. That I got the lake to myself, angling well, finding them, moving, catching them, and not seeing anyone else on the bank.
And
the
mad thing to me is that fish existed out of sight and out of mind with some of the a great deal of high sort of highly experienced anglers driving past, walking past all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's you do get distracted with pit 3 and 4, especially when people are saying, oh, well, there might be 1 or 2 in the golf course lake, but they're not very big, well, you stay on pit 3 and 4. So I mean, don't get me wrong, I wasn't the first person to carp fish it, and I'm sure it had been caught many times by many different people. I don't know, but it felt pioneering because I didn't have any photographs. I didn't know anyone else that was fishing there. I hadn't seen the fish, so it was just a wonderful. I think I did 3 6-week periods down there where I fished that particular lake. And caught a number of them, getting quite a lot of repeats at the end of it, so it wasn't too long before.
It must have been with sort of a wry smile that you then see these fish popping up a few years later, absolutely massive as well.
It's funny because I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, Rich, but Nick Hellier had fished the golf course lake, and I think he'd caught a number of fish from there on the first morning, I think was the story. Well, that was after these captures, so I was just finishing up when he had that hit. I think he fished it once and caught what he wanted.
Yeah,
and
more or
never-
less. I think
never came back.
I think maybe you'd kept it quiet though, because I think the photo he'd seen was Matt Townend,
Ah, okay. Yeah.
who now works in these offices. Yeah, but Matt had caught it, I think,
He did.
and again probably not told anybody.
Yeah.
But there's an awful lot of sort of comings and goings with no one really knowing what was going on.
Yeah, exactly. It was. It felt pioneering.
Yeah, which is lovely. And did that talk to me about where that fits in with this idea that you're going to take what you've written and it's going to be a book?
So that's probably a couple of years later. I'll answer that question. But I think the idea of the book, bearing in mind I'd been writing since 2006, so in 2012 I'd been writing for 6 years. I'd got probably 120,000 words done.
And just for people who don't know, how many words would a book be normally?
At 100, well, Beyond the Green Gate was 155,000.
So you were almost there.
Yeah, I was almost there, but looking for an end, because you know what I mean, I needed it to catch something special or to.
I mean, the Italian must have been like manna from heaven in that sense, but obviously you didn't finish.
It was almost too early.
Yeah.
But in 2012, I was offered a Save Syndicate ticket, and it was that is the end. That is the full stop. Good night. So once I'd accepted and was fishing Save, it was a case of finishing up those last couple of years, which didn't take too. It took me probably 12 months to go. There's 12 months between having a Save Syndicate ticket and signing off the artwork and going to print, which was an unbelievable time as far as a mixture of excitement and anxiety and. Is it any good? I don't know.
Who did you trust to read it?
I gave it to a couple of people. I gave a guy called Reuben Page. Hi, Rube. I think I gave Mickey Gray it because you just don't. You might think, I think it's okay.
Do you worry that people just are gonna say it's good anyway? Friends.
Yes. I wouldn't say I worried about it, but I think a lot of people, if you said, "Can you give me some feedback on the book?" would struggle to give that.
And obviously now you're in that position where someone's submitting something and you're going to have to say, listen, this needs some work, or
Absolutely.
actually it's not right.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That must be the hardest part.
Yes, it is. It's but it's all done. That feedback is all constructive and kind of it's done in such a way to help that person to then finish it off. But in 2012, offered the Save Syndicate ticket. I'd got my clothes. I'd got the end of the book. It was now, I spent a year to do it, and within that year I also put the pen down for the last time, proofed it, had it proofed externally, and it was April 2012,
Mm-hmm.
13, I beg your pardon. I signed off the words. I said, right, that's it, we're done. It had been designed and laid out as well, and it was kind of done.
Did you self-publish that one?
So I self-published that one.
Yeah.
I used a company called Fishing Book Sender, and I think it was the 1st of May. I was sitting at home thinking, okay, well, what am I going to do with this? Because at this stage, my desire, my objective with Beyond the Green Gate was to have my book on my bookshelf. That was the drive. It wasn't about fame or fortune or anything like that. It was a labour of love. It was a hobby, and I wanted my book on my bookshelf. So initially, when I started to investigate how am I going to publish this, I was thinking, I want to put the words into a machine. The words go clinkety clunkety clunk in the machine, and out pops a book. Pops one book. Thank you very much. That's going on my bookshelf. That was still probably where I was at this stage. But what I did was I had a meeting and saw samples of that way of producing. Because the key thing for me was how few can I print? Because no one knows who I am. How few can I? Well, when I looked at the example, I thought it just was, the quality wasn't there, and my big desires changed from how few can I produce to how many do I need to produce to pay for it. So I think it was on the Monday first of May kind of time, I put together a draft of a Facebook page. I wonder what it could, what it could look like, and and I'm not going to publish it yet, but I just wonder what it put something together. And the next day I woke up and I got 2 or 3 likes, and I was thinking, I didn't think I obviously didn't mean to, and must have done, but I was kind of like, oh, bugger. Well, the Beyond the Green Gate was then signed off on the 21st of March, 21st of May. So there was 20 days between opening that Facebook page and pressing print. And in those 20 days, the Facebook page did its job, and I'd sold all 200.
I mean, pre-sale is a way that people now use, I guess, to guarantee a certain amount of, in fact, to probably pay for printing.
Absolutely. The tough part about the publishing game is that everybody wants paying up front. Whether it's designers, proofers, printers, you're shelling out an awful lot of money
ahead of ever making a penny, right?
Before getting any income, absolutely. So I now had to think about, okay, well, what's the most important thing for me on this book? And it was quality rather than quantity. It was quality. So then it was like, okay, how many do I need to print to get the quality and my book on my bookshelf?
It's a nice, like, heavy, like the paper stock's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't even know. I remember hearing about it, just to give you the other side of what was happening, I guess. Because where was I? I was working here at the time, but I don't know. It kind of leaked out because the ability to reach people was there, but only just.
Yes,
really.
It was quite early. Yeah.
But you got to a position quite quickly where it in the eyes of many, it was set to be a cult book.
Yes.
And it's without anyone really know who you were. I mean, you couldn't quite get out to people the same way as you can now, but somehow within the space of whatever you say 20 days, you'd gone from no one having heard of you outside of your immediate fishing circles to being, we'd all heard that there was like potential cult book coming out. So how did that feel?
Special. It not the cult thing, the receiving of the first book. I didn't, but I could have cried, through pride and happiness and joy. I didn't. I managed to keep myself together.
So obviously you've now got a great big box of books, Stu, when it comes, and you've sold a certain proportion of them. Did you have much work to do in terms of selling the rest, and how did you do it?
So in the 20 days up until pressing print, so 20 days of the Facebook page, I'd sold all 200.
Everything. So you didn't think, I need to do a print run, or?
People were saying, you've got to do more. You make some money out of it. But I'd sold the book to, let's say, 200 people on the basis of it were 100 or 200 book. And I wanted to stay true to my desires, the objective of the project to start with. So it was a funny time when the game changed from me spending my money to produce something, and people might think it's shit, to now I'm spending somebody else's money.
That must have been terrifying.
For a guy who was suffering with anxiety, it was a heady mix of excitement and anxiety is the best way I could describe it. So I made the decision that I was going to stay true to that and was only going to do the 200. Now I think a couple of months later the books have been sent to me and they've all gone out and signed and numbered and stuff, and I've just got some really lovely feedback, that it was such a nice book and a good book and different fish, and apparently people seem to like the style of writing that I did, and it was all good, and that was it. I sold 200. I also did 25 leather bounds and 25 special editions. But with that, it washed it. I think I might have made 400 quid out of the project or something. It broke even, and that was it. Job done. But I think 3 days later. So to answer your question, how did the book market? There are some book collectors, and the book collectors were on me like a.
Because they knew it was going to be limited.
Absolutely, right? That's what they wanted, a limited edition, high numbered book if they can, as in one of 200, and they want to put it on the bookshelf and probably never read it. So again, you think, oh, I've done all this hard work.
Did you get resellers buying it as well?
Yeah, so I think some of those collectors, what they do and what they did was buy 3 or 4, and then they flog on 2 or 3, and then they keep their 1, and that pretty much is paid for by the profit made. So there was a lot of that going on, and within a week, it was changing hands for nearly 200 quid.
Amazing, yeah.
I could not believe it. Couldn't fathom it. Why? It didn't seem to make any sense really.
Yeah, books haven't sold for that kind of money since like Phil Thompson at this stage, since Waiting for Godot.
No, absolutely.
And I believe legend goes that Phil skipped a load.
He
of them.
did.
They were like 1,200 quid and stuff, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously the fact is only 200 books made it to high retail or high second hand. I'm not suggesting
I've kept mine, by the way. I have kept mine. Yeah.
But those people that bought those 2 or 3 spares and sold them on, within a week they'd made more money than I had on this 10-year project.
That's amazing, yeah.
7-year project. And I tell you, that took some time to sit comfortably with me. Not with them and what they would do, just the fact that...
Well, you would have had the devil on angel on one shoulder, the devil on the other, saying, do more. You could do 1,000 here and then look at the money.
Yeah. So it's really strange. And that led me to probably 4 years later, I think 3 or 4 years later, I did a rerun. Because they were then swapping hands at 280 quid for a first edition. People were saying, I'd love to read it, but there's no way I can afford that.
I think the thing is, though, your conscience is clear because it's a second edition, right? Yeah. So the people who got their first edition, it's still a first edition. It hasn't diluted that particular product.
The value did go down, as expected.
Because people could just get a copy to read if they wanted to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It did have a drop in the second-hand market. I got quite a kick out of it being one of, if not the most expensive Carp book.
Yes. Since Phil, yeah. Yeah,
that kind of filled my pigeon chest, full of pride, and I quite like that. And I kind of like that more than if I'd have made a few quid.
How many have you got now? Have you still just got one first edition of your own?
I've only got one. I don't have... My relationship with books has completely changed in the last 18 months.
Did you give your folks one?
Yes, so family had one. Some 25 leathers, which I kept number 1 of that and the special. I ended up selling them a couple of years ago when I was needed some money for putting a extension on the back. So
nice.
Yeah, well, it helped.
So that was Beyond the Green Gate, and that's going back a long way, but obviously it did in a way spawn where you are today. And we've talked about how you got to where you are today, but let's talk a little bit about Hiding in the Long Grass, which is the follow-up. And I think anyone expecting a similar book, it's very different to my mind. I've got it, mate, thanks. Having seen that, just passing the water around the table, having read both, Hiding in the Long Grass, totally different pace. Like, Beyond the Green Gate was the kind of, I found it fascinating to hear you talk about the way that you started writing a book when you didn't have a book to write.
Yeah.
Finished up, having court to order, if you like. It flows into Hiding in the Long Grass, and I'm fascinated by particularly the Chimney stuff, which I just think is one of the most amazing sort of wild lakes, and I think...
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I mean, would you say that fishing on that kind of crazy Bedfordshire clay pit is right up there in the stuff you've done?
Absolutely. It's, if I could go back, start again, knowing nothing from scratch, I would do that on Chimneys and have the adventure all over again.
Really? Even though you know that the adventure leads, to very few carp.
Yeah, and we all want different things out of our fishing, and one of the things that I've realised a long time ago, but certainly in the last 10 or 15 years, is I just don't want to be amongst the crowds. I don't want to be running for swims and buckets and swims. It's just not how I want to fish, really. So I have gone down the route of fewer carp, maybe bigger carp, in a year. But that's the waters that I choose to fish, rather than going somewhere and getting a.
But this is a brooding giant, Chimneys, with
yes.
Fish that don't ever get caught in it.
It's a complete mystery. There's nothing out there to help you understand, who's fished there before or what's in there or anything like that. It was a complete blank page. And funnily enough, I was a fellow toad was Craig, who ran Trent Baits and also ran Chimneys. So one day when I was sitting with Craig on Savay, chatting away, and he was telling me about this lake, and I wasn't really interested because I'd just got on Savay, and that's where I'm going to die, sort of thing. But he, probably the next year then he said, "Do you want to go for a walk?" So we ended up going, and I just went, "Wow, wow, yeah." It's 120 acres. There's two rules, or there was two rules. One was you wear a life jacket when out in a boat, and the other one was don't be a dick. Simple, and they were the rules, and it was a case of turn up, load your boat, go and try and find some fish, and it was as pure as that. And what a absolute head-banging water it was for many reasons.
I think it'd be good to describe it, really, because I think unless you've visited those Bedfordshire clay pits, you have got no idea. These are like lunar landscapes with blackthorn and wild rose, like everything trying to rip chunks out of you, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'm sure we've all heard and read stories about the Black Mirror and Colne Valley, Colmere, and similar. Not a tree ran a whole lake, just everything had got 2-inch barbs or was waving a 1-inch proboscis at you out all the time. Everything was out to either scratch you, cut you, eat you. And the sun, because of the no shade, the sun was a nightmare as well. But so the water is crystal clear, 120 acres, depths down to about 48 feet, probably an average depth of 23 feet, I would think, something like that. It was all of the lakes, the 3 or 4 lakes in that vale. They were all extracted. It was the clay they were after. Yeah, and they dug these pits along the vale, and hence the name Chimneys. They used to be, I think it was 140 chimneys visible in that vale,
and now there's none. I guess.
I think the last have gone. So apparently, talking about Dad, when you used to drive south, apparently down the newly made M1, you'd smell when you got to sort of Luton way, you'd smell that kind
Bricks.
And I think something like a third of after the rebuilding of the country after World War II, I think something like 40% of the bricks used came from this vale, sort of thing. The clay was also of a particular, when you got down so far, it was of a particular type of clay that was very cheap in firing it. So it was this particular clay they were after because it brought the overhead cost down, and was much easier to produce. So I think 1 in 3 bricks used in after World War II came from that vale.
And is it right that Chimneys, started out with an awful lot of carp in there, and I guess just whittled away?
It's been owned by a couple of people, or a couple of organisations.
Carp Society had
Carp
at one point.
Society,
I remember I won a ticket for
Did
Chimneys
you?
at a raffle in the northwest of England.
Wow.
Never visited
Crikey.
it. Obviously, I was a 14-year-old or something.
Or a second prize, 2 tickets.
No, it was probably a bag of ground bait.
It's very.
I should have gone for the ground bait.
It's very industrial, and I don't mean sort of built up factories. More, there's bricks and there's a safe that's been dumped and part of
Wild West, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a digger, because it was drag lined, and occasionally you'll see when the water goes particularly clear and you can see down to 30 feet. You can sort of see some of these old remnants.
30-foot viz.
Yeah, and it's mad, isn't it? Absolutely.
And
mad.
what did you think you were fishing for at the time?
So everything I knew came from Craig, and he had. Craig is an exceptional angler, and he'd done very well on it. He was able to show me loads of photos, and basically there was a lot of 20s and 30s, but they were all growing on. But I think somewhere along the line, there's certainly not as many as there used to be. It was stocked by and Amptill.
Yep.
I always think of wacky races, but I think they had it originally. Carp Society took it on, then it was a syndicate, and then Craig took it on sometime in the early 2000s, I think. It's had a few stockings. I think they put 3 in during the 10 years. 3
Heavy stock then.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Not 3 carp, three
separate stockings. Yeah.
each of, I think, 20. So we didn't really know what was in there, but we'd seen some of these big fish, and they were £30, but they were lovely. But if you wanted to catch lots of big fish, that was not the place to be going. This was not about it. This is all about camaraderie, and there was only 4 or 5 of us fishing it with any regularity.
It would have seen off a lot of people, wouldn't it? Who thought
it did do. Yeah, you had, every year there'd be 20 people spend their money and buy a ticket, and I bet we only ever saw about 8 of them even down there, let alone fishing. An absolutely mad place. Big island. Imagine it like a figure of 8 with a big sort of 3-acre island in the middle.
Could you fish off the island?
Yeah. So literally the 2 rules,
Yeah.
It was, and I was fortunate that my first bite came in 37 feet of depth. So all of a sudden, just in that one, in that one moment, the depth went completely out of my mind as far as a problem, which was brilliant, because some people, 3 years in, they're still fishing on the top of the bars because they don't want to go into the deeper water. So the fish do get in there, they do feed there, and so that was, and also going, they're just carp, aren't they? They eat and they shit, and if they want to investigate something, they've got to put it in their mouth, and they're catchable, and it just went from there. I was probably doing upwards of 100 nights a year, so all my holiday, all my weekend, everything was going on Chimneys. I got made I took a furlough over COVID, so basically spent 9 weeks living on the island.
It must have been such memories though from that.
Well, particularly as I'd just bought a dog about 6 weeks prior to lockdown, which partly was great timing, but also was tough because once we were locked down, we couldn't do the socialising and stuff. But Dave is the dog's name. Lived on the island with me for 9 weeks, and it was just the making of him. Obviously, never on a lead. In fact, he wasn't on a lead on Chimneys at all because there's no one else there, and can't get lost. Spending 9 weeks on that island with Dave. He was chasing all the geese around, and I'd wake up in the morning and there'd be a couple of eggshells behind the bivvy, and he was just having the time of his life on that island. Those years, that year, I probably did 120 nights, so an awful lot of fishing, but an awful lot of blanking as well.
Having caught so quickly, why has it kicked your arse so comprehensively?
Every season you turn up and you start again. I think I did 7 years on there, and I couldn't tell you how or why I caught a single fish. No rhyme or reason. You'd turn up the next year and that whole North Lake wouldn't fish, but the South Lake would, or vice versa, or they were in the weed, they're not in the weed this year, or it was just every time you turned up it would start from scratch. And I use the word pure because that's how it felt, and it was such a good group of like-minded souls. We were soon best mates. And
did you see anything sort of like monumental in there? Because there was always rumours, weren't there?
There was. Yes, I did. It was. I'd probably say there was 4 uncaught 50-pounders in there at the right time of year.
Which sounds mad. If someone else said that to you, you'd be like, come on. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I was fishing. I'd found these fish and was fishing in the edge, and I was just underarm flicking down the margin underneath the tree, and a mate of mine was up the tree. He's only, a couple of rod lengths away from me, but he was looking down at the spot, and I couldn't see the spot, so I was using him to say, fish had gone. And when they'd gone, I'd put the bait in. I'm probably 3 feet off the bank underneath the tree, and at that point I'd sink the line and put the bobbin on and stuff, and I'm kind of watching Sam, who was up the tree, and there was times he was gibbering away and excitement, and I'm sitting there going, what can you see? Why can't I? What's going on? And it turned out there was 3 commons on that spot, all in a line going across the small area where I've got some bait. They were just going on. He said they were standing on their heads where your bait was, and the biggest fish that we'd caught out of there, a fish called kinkyback, Sam said was the smallest one there. There's one example. There was another one, a grey one, big grey one, probably not too dissimilar from the Italian that we looked at a minute ago, and that would get seen every once in a while, but just never caught. There was another one with great big white lips. You'd see it taking mixers, and it would just look quite bizarre because it was a real white inner mouth sort of thing. It's very spottable. So we all saw these fish probably once or twice a year. They just disappeared.
And yet you gave it up.
I became the last man standing. Kind of, all my mates had all dropped and they'd all gone on for varying reasons. One had caught too many.
Life being too short being one of them.
Yeah, absolutely that. I was the last man standing, and the question for that year, all the way around that year, was, what does it take to not? How long can I keep doing, 120 miles to get down here, and all this time, and I'm getting all these repeat captures. We all desperately wanted to catch one of those myths, and we didn't. We all failed. Are they still in there? I've no reason to say they're not. But I'd love to start that time all over again. I really would.
Amazing. Let's see the biggest one you did catch, Tope, because it is an incredible carp. Like, that's the one, yeah. I mean, sum that up for us. Describe that fish to us, because some people will be listening to this and not seeing this, Stu. So what is that?
So this is sitting on the island. This would have been about 2014. It's a 44-pound common. Very deep, quite chesty,
sort of buttery yellow scales, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, this is self-takes at night, so not ideal. Bit of a kink in the back, bit of a dip in the back.
See that where the tail root sort of meets, it's drops.
Yeah, the dorsal.
Yeah.
Mouth mint. But so somebody else caught that. No, there was a little story about this fish actually. I was a member, I think it was my first year on Chimneys, first or second year on Chimneys. I hadn't fished it, didn't know this fella, but I saw on Facebook this comment, and my jaw dropped, and I reckon that day I went back to that photo probably 10 or 12 times and just stared at it and went, fucking wow, look at that. Imagine having a ticket with that fish in it. And as I say, I went throughout the day, went back several times to have another gorp, and it must have been a Friday. I turned up at 6 o'clock in the car park. Could see some smoke from a barbecue in the car park swim, so got myself changed from the work club. I went and saw this. In fact, there was 2 of them sat there. I hadn't met them before because I was a newbie, and did the usual, all right guys, how you doing? Kind of, you having fun? And eventually, kind of, are you doing any good? You're seeing them, you're catching them. And Darren said, yeah, I've caught this, and he showed me the picture, and it was this fish, and it was just, I didn't recognise him. And
you've got a ticket for it.
All of a sudden, I've got bloody hell. I've got a ticket for this marvellous common. 9 months later, it was in the bottom of my net.
Amazing.
But this is sat on the island, lake to myself, island to myself. I'd lost a couple. I'd lost one. Had that one about 1 o'clock in the morning, I think it was. And then, in fact, it was just before that, I had a rudd. So Chimneys has got some massive rudd in it. Without a doubt, they are British record rudd. And I caught one 2 yards out on a boilie, fishing for carp. And it's a funny little stuttery run sort of thing. And, pretty soon I'm almost swinging this thing in. I didn't. I used the net, obviously. But I had a look. I'd never seen anything like it. Put my hand up. I haven't got the biggest hands in the world, but put my hand over it just to give it some perspective. But Darren had caught one. Funny enough, when he caught the kinky back, he caught a rudd as well, and he weighed it and got a photo of it. And I think his weight, I think the British record for rudd, if I remember right, was £4.11. He weighed this thing at £5.6.
Oh my God.
Now, look, it was on
Carp scales, right?
It was on carp scales, and so take it with a little pinch of salt. But it was £5, and would have broken the record. But of course, Darren had caught one of them 9 months earlier, and we went wow. But and then I caught one just after that, and I didn't weigh it. I took a photo of it lying on the ground with my hand near it, and then I put it back. And as it sort of swam off, I almost kind of jump in and grab it back, because to this day, I wish I'd weighed it.
Having known how big Darren's was, for you then not to weigh it is a mad decision, isn't it?
But as I put it back, I said to myself out loud, "I'll catch you by design." That was, that would be the angling achievement rather than catching it on £20 line. And I made a choice. I'll put it back now. I won't weigh it. I'll take any proper photos, because I'll catch one soon. I'll bring my maggot gear down, and I'll catch one. I did spend about 9 months trying to catch one of these big rudd. Never even saw one.
Amazing.
Never
Love
even
that.
saw one. There's squillions and squillions of rudd in Chimneys, and Chimneys is very much a reed-lined lake. So what I used to do, I used to get the boat, and I'd just basically plough into the reeds, and then fish out the back of the, close the reeds up behind me, and then fish, and basically just feed, wait for, hoping that something's. I use gallons of maggots and loaves of bread, and all I could find was probably about 12 ounces being the biggest I caught. Catching one a shot, just millions of them. But how do you target these big ones? So I ended up not just feeding and not fishing. Towards the end of the summer, I was like, I've got to do something. The year's gone, sort of thing. So next time I'm down, I'm going to bring the carp gear, and I'll do some proper fishing. I sat in the car park having chucked the rods out, and would you believe it? About 30 yards out from the swim I was fishing, I saw what I thought was a small carp roll. And Darren was with me at the time, and I saw another one. I said, "Oh, there's another one." It looks like it might be one of the stockies, because it's not. And then we saw one roll, and we both looked at each other and went, "That was a rudd." We saw the rudd-shaped fin, and with that they were rolling. And that first week for 9 months, I'd left my rudd tackle at home, and here I am fishing, and they're there. So I reeled in that morning, went home, which is 120 miles. 200-mile round trip, and got the rod, the right gear and maggots and bread and whatever, and failed miserably. I couldn't quite get close enough to them without spooking them. Anyway, I had a couple of days where I
was close.
I've also got a picture. It's a great picture, but it's a grebe, but the grebe is a long way away, and it's obviously come up, and it's got this bloody rudd in its mouth, and I'm watching it for probably 30 seconds a minute, and it was trying to flip it and turn it, get it down. In the end, it had to let go and let the fish swim off. It didn't eat it; it was too big. But I got a picture of it in the
Amazing
in the jaws, and that was a big rod as well. So how do you target them? I don't know. I gave that a go, but
I love the fact that Chimneys just resoundingly gave you a kicking on everything you tried for.
Absolutely. Eels are the other one. It's done some very big eels to the one or two people that have had a go. But one of them has caught a double-figure eel from there.
Which is, again, probably even more rare than rudd.
Oh, totally. But I think he did about 80 nights before he had a bite for the eels.
So it would have been a wrench letting Chimneys go.
Yes, it was. It was. How long do I give it? How long do I?
Irrespective of how much you love it.
Yeah, I was getting a lot of repeat captures. One of them I'd caught 3 times. I was seeing. It was the usual 80-20 rule that 20% made 80% of the captures. So yes, I could have carried on, but for 2 years I was asking myself, when is enough? When do you say, well, I've enjoyed it and I've got to, because life is too short.
Yep, and it all moved on, and we're gonna wrap this by talking about the future, Stu. You know, you've now in publishing. Very different to when you started on Chimneys. What have you got lined up? What can you tell us about the way things are going to go?
Well, I mean, there's several strands to the DaveDog business. One is publishing my books and books that I'm collating. So things like the Icons book, where although I've not written it because there's no writing in it, it's one I've compiled. So for me and my ideas and bringing them to fruition is one part. The other part is I want to be the person that people come to and say, I've written a book, but I don't know what to do with it. Can you help? And I had one of those conversations with somebody probably 18 months ago, and we're just about to sign off his book. So if you like, my first customer.
Amazing, yeah.
It's a brilliant book. Be up on the website soon. It's probably 2 months away from having the physical books with us. So watch out for the DaveDog socials for further information. But I've got Icons coming out very soon. I've got this other book by Dan that will be a month or two down the line, and then I'm hoping in October I'm going to publish the Lee Valley. So just like the Colne Valley, obviously, but the other side of London. So that is being proofed as we speak. So those three will definitely be out this year. And then I've got one that's, I probably had 3 chapters for it, I think, called European Wild Waters, which it will do what it says on the tin. I've got another book that I'm probably had 3 chapters for, need to do a bit of prepping, and this is probably the one I'm going to face into after the Lee Valley is done, but a working title of The M4 Corridor, which I think will be an awesome book. And again, so the plan with DaveDog is to bring out new titles from new people, not just about the same old stories or the same fish with just a different head over the top of it. These are the sort of things I want to be doing. There's definitely doors open as far as I'd like to do a European Icons book. I think that would be pretty special. And there's a Colne Valley 2, which is, again, it's in progress. A couple of chapters for that. That'll be Christmas 26. So yeah, I've got a list of probably 35 books that I would like to do.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's great, mate. I do think it's great that somebody is doing it. You've had like Little Egret Press. They've kept stuff going since the majority of publishers don't anymore. But I think it's fantastic that someone in our particular little part of the world and of the industry is keeping it going, mate. So
thank you. So somebody's got. Funnily enough, I was at I think it was April. I went to Pete Springate's show down in Essex, and I remember looking around the room, and I'm 50, and I was about the youngest in the room. And it led a few of us to a conversation, because it was a slideshow that we went to, of, is this the end of slideshows? Once we're all dead, who is going to want to take up the mantle and organise them, let alone go to them? So I think we are going to see changes in the way that things happen. I think clearly we've had massive change regarding social media, but I'd like to bring books back to life. I'd like to get people passionate about their books. So I've got a couple of other people that I'm working with at the moment on their book. So yeah, lots going. I'm spinning lots and lots of plates. And none have dropped just yet, which is great. Long may that continue.
I mean, like I say, for me, as someone who loved books, I would like a way back in. So I will certainly keep an eye on the stuff that you're bringing out, and if you can get that kind of all those factors to coalesce, then the decision should be really easy, shouldn't it?
It should. I think, I mean, I've joked that I'm on a one-man mission to save print. Not quite true. There are a number of people out there doing it, but the world has changed, and the way we want to have a look at see our fish and read about fish is very different these days. But I'm hoping that there's going to be a little bit like the old vinyl record players, that have come back and are now quite niche and loved once again. So I'd love to think that it will come back round again. But DaveDog is all about the quality. I don't want to publish stories that have been published before or photos. I want to do things slightly different. They will always be quality. That's very much the market I'm going for. They're £40-45 books, but that's where I want to be. I want to look at them with pride on the bookshelf of the quality that they are.
Brilliant. And just to recap, when can people get the Icons book?
So Icons, The Best of British, is available to pre-order now.
By the time this comes out, it will be out, I presume.
It will be about out, yes. So, yes. So I was hoping it was going to be July. It might squeak into August, but Icons will be delivered then. So yeah, and like I said earlier, these are some massive bills I've got to pay, and everybody wants the money up front.
Yeah.
So pre-ordering is vitally important. Without the pre-orders, I couldn't do it.
Okay.
What I'd love to have is a pot of money in an account that is almost like my float.
Yeah.
And I just take from that and put into.
Well, hopefully you can get there.
That's what I'd like. And I think and hope that Icons and the customers that it's going to bring to DaveDog Publications website, hopefully they'll come back for more. They like what they saw, and they want to come back for more. So that's the plan.
Awesome. Well, listen, I really hope, as a book aficionado, mate, more power to you, and thank you so much for coming in, Stuart. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks for asking. Been enjoyable. Thank you.